arrived at the intelligence headquarters in Jalalabad, where I was taken out and introduced to the director, who spoke a little bit of English, and he gave me a pen and a paper, and he said, write down all your details that can prove that you are a journalist. So I wrote down telephone numbers, contact numbers, names, addresses, anything that I thought would verify who I am. And then I handed him the paper back, and he said, we are about to eat and you can join us. And I said, well, really, first I need to use the telephone. I need to make a call. And he said, impossible. And I said, well, if you won't give me the telephone, I'm not going to eat, either as a prisoner or as a guest of the Taliban. I need to make a call. And he said, impossible. So I said, well, I'm not eating, and he just shrugged his shoulders. And I was taken into a room which was to become my cell for the next 6 days. Now you'd think that the most evil, brutal regime in the world couldn't care less if I'd gone on hunger strike, but they were really upset. Every morning, noon and night they would come in and they would lay out a cloth, and they would bring in the most delicious smelling flat bread and a little bowl of rice, and depending on what time of day it was, a little bit of stew. If I was lucky, there might be 3 or 4 pieces of meat there. And they would have a jug of water and a bowl, and they would wash my hands, and they would say, you are our guest, you are our sister. And I'm thinking, I'm not falling for this. You know, these are evil, brutal men, and they hate women. I'm not going to be nice to these guys. And so I said, take the food away. And each time we went through the same charade, and each time I would say, telephone, they would say no, and I'd say, take the food away. By the 3rd day, I was still feeling okay. A doctor came in. He trained in Germany, but he understood a little bit of English, and he started checking my pulse, looked in my mouth, in my eyes, in my ears. He started taking my temperature and then my blood pressure, and I thought, oh, they do this on death row in America, don't they? Just before they're about to execute somebody, they like to make sure they're nice and healthy before they flick the switch. And he took my blood pressure, and something bothered him about it. So he took it again, and I said, yes, it'll be high. And he said, no, your blood pressure is normal. I said, don't be so ridiculous. I have high blood pressure. It must be through the roof. I've been captured by the Taliban. And he said, look, it's normal. And he took my blood pressure again, and it was normal. And I said, well, there you go. 3 days with the Taliban, and you've cured my blood pressure. Thank you very much. On the 5th day, his son Hamid, who had the misfortune to speak Pashto, Urdu, and English, came running in, and he said, Miss Yvonne, you are famous, you're famous, look, you're on the front page. And even though photographs were banned by the Taliban, there were 2 Reuters pictures of me, and headlines which went right the way down the front page with a tiny little story at the bottom. And I said to Hamid, what do the headlines say? And he said, the headlines say, the Taliban have cured Yvonne Ridley's blood pressure and she's very happy. So obviously they were starting to learn a little bit about PR, media and spin. During those first few days, Hamid acted as a translator. And he used to say to me, as we'd have these people coming in, scary-looking men coming in asking questions, he used to say to me, will you please be respectful to these people? These people terrify me, and they should terrify you. My theory was, these people, these scary people, and they did look scary, are going to kill me. So it doesn't matter if I'm nice or nasty to them, they're going to execute me. After all, they're part of this evil, brutal regime. So I decided that I would be the prisoner from hell. So I'd gone on hunger strike, I swore at them, I cursed them, I spat at them, I threw things at them, In fact, every prejudice that they would have held about Western women were probably reinforced tenfold by my behaviour. And they responded by telling me, you were our guest, you were our sister. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with these people? What don't they understand about being a brutal regime? I really thought that if I cut them any slack, if I was nice to them, that's when the electrodes would come out. That's when the abuse would really start. So on the grounds that you don't kiss the hand that slaps you, I became the prisoner from hell. On the 6th day, Hamid came to see me, and he said to me, he came in and his face was almost black with fear, and he could barely talk, his mouth was so dry, and he said to me, you have an important visitor. He is very, very important, and you must be respectful. And I said, well, who is it? And I'm thinking, you know, is it Mullah Omar, Osama bin Laden? And he's going, please, you must be respectful. And he went away. He came back a few minutes later and knocked on the door. Although I was the prisoner, I had my own key. And I told you they didn't understand this evil, brutal regime. And so I opened the door, and there, standing in front of me, was a man who made my blood run cold. I had avoided talking about religion for 6 days, and there in front of me was a religious cleric. And furthermore, everything in Afghanistan was dirty, ripped or torn. Everything that the Taliban wore was above the ankles. This guy had an immaculate ivory gown on that went right to the ground. You couldn't see his feet. And he had a big ivory turban. But he had quite a modest beard by Afghan standards, very light brown eyes. And he had a serene smile on his face, and he had beads which he moved two at a time. And there was something else, something about him that really freaked me out. I'd never seen anything like this before, and when I got back to London and told my first Muslim audience, they explained to me what it was. What really freaked me out about this guy was the light on his face. And it wasn't a light shining onto his face, it was a light coming from within, shining out. I now know that to be the nur, the natural light that emanates from particularly pious practicing Muslims. I've never seen anyone since with so much nur on their face as this man had. But as I say, I didn't know what it was, it just really freaked me out. So I stood aside and invited him in, and he was so elegant, he didn't walk, he just glided in and sat down, and I sat opposite, and Hamid acted as the translator. And he said, what religion are you? And I thought, oh, here we go. I said, I'm a Christian. And he said, yes, but what sort of Christian? He said, I said, I'm a Protestant from the Church of England. And he said, and what do you think about Islam? Well, in truth, I knew very little about Islam, other than what I'd been told, and that you could have written on the back of a stamp, and as it turned out, it was all wrong anyway. But he said, what do you think of Islam? And I looked at him.